When it comes to the effects of COVID and the rules around COVID, Australians are being told to expect more empty shelves right across supermarkets across the country because of the supply chain crisis. Despite some changes to isolation requirements, there's still under pressure to keep up with demand. Let's catch up now with the Labor Senator for New South Wales, Tony Sheldon, who's formerly been a Transport Union official. Good to talk to you, Tony. First up, I think there's a lot of publicity around these shortages and sort of people blame the pandemic, people blame the virus, but isn't it more about the rules that governments have been put in place that are just too onerous? They're not, every time there's one person, gets positive on a rat, it takes out a dozen workers. We've got to be getting much more practical about the way we implement those isolation bans, don't we?
Look, I think it's a combination of things, Chris, and all the best for the new year for you. But I think when you look at those rat tests, like you need to actually be able to do a rat test so people can actually come to work and not infect somebody else. Because when you infect somebody else, then you want to take a rat test, don't you? So, and then you find you're infected. You're going to have a proper system that we can actually manage the rapid antigen tests, but not only in transport supply chains and in our supply chains generally, but also we've failed on this whole supply chain question by not having rapid antigen tests that we were making here, being able to be distributed here. We're selling them overseas. Like, it seems pretty enormous mistake when we have the credit of the New South Wales government and the Victorian government. They come up with a common plan on how to go back to school. But isn't there a problem when we can't get enough rat tests and we're only doing 2 in a 5-day period at our schools? To me,
well, I reckon 2 might be too many. 2 might be too many. We heard from Dominic Perrottet yesterday. A lot of this is just to keep the people who are very nervous keep up their confidence levels. I think I know a lot of people want rat tests now, right? But I guarantee you, in a month there'll be warehouses full of them, because we're not going to keep going this way. We're going to go to a model where if you're sick, stay home. If you're not sick, go to work, right?
Well, Chris, I think one of the things that we want to all be very mindful of is that not only the challenges and the advice we're receiving from the health departments and the experts, but also the thing is that we could have variants coming in well. And look, we're all hopeful that doesn't happen. There's a possibility, and our hope is that it won't happen. And there's a real chance that it may not happen, but there's also a real chance it could. That's really the flipping of the coin question. So it is an important thing with both rat tests and also with how we're dealing with our supply chain. So we have a strategy not just for today, but for tomorrow and next year and the year after that, and so on.
Yeah, to a degree, but of course we know things change, as you say, with differing variants and the way things plan out. So you've got to have a lot of flexibility. I want to put to you what I said at the top of the program. I showed a grab of Mark Butler where he was being very pessimistic about where we're at. Now, I make the point, it's not a partisan thing. There are Liberal premiers who are kind of hysterical about this virus as well, in particular Stephen Marshall in South Australia. But do you think as a whole the political world, like most of the media, has just been too hysterical about this? We ought to take confidence from the fact that we are well prepared as a nation, highly vaccinated, and we're dealing with the inevitable thrust of this virus becoming endemic, something we could never avoid. We're dealing with it in a manner that most countries would be envious of.
I think something's very clear, and that is that we should definitely be listening to the health experts' advice on how this should be dealt with, not to senators from New South Wales, but to those that actually know what the challenges are and how we best take up those challenges. But on the political decision about how we allocate resources to make sure that we've got enough truck drivers, enough people working in aged care, enough people working in childcare. The Prime Minister came with that ridiculous idea the other day where 16-year-olds should be put into forklifts. Now, on the surface, for many of your listeners, might sound like people are watching the show today, might think that might have some credit to it. It was a brain bubble spurt, because what happened was when you do 16-year-olds in that sort of industry, it actually puts them at great risk, because that's an industry which has...
Oh, come on. No one's suggesting they wouldn't be trained or licensed. How old were you when you first drove some equipment at work?
Well, I was in my early 20s. I was a cleaner and
How many of us do you reckon
before I
have
was a
driven
gardener,
tractors and forklifts when we were teenagers?
I don't know, but I tell you it's not enough.
All right. Thanks for joining us, Tony. I appreciate your time.
All the best, Chris. Take care.
Tony Sheldon, the Labor Senator for New South Wales.